Hello everyone, welcome to the 202nd episode of the Spiritual Brainstorm. In this video, I'd like to discuss this very often debated question of, given the fact that there's suffering, pain, violence, all these different things in our world, what does that say about the nature of God, right? And so the argument goes that if God is passive and lets all that evil and pain in the world, then God must be evil, or God is not almighty, because if God is good, then there would be no legitimate reason for God not to intervene if he's good, leaving all the pain, leaving all the evil. And I think that this is a wild misunderstanding of the true nature of absolutes. And I've often talked about absolutes on this channel because they are always misunderstood, because absolutes in one direction are always sort of cemented or how should I say this? They're always the same side of the powerlessness coin. That is, when you're all powerful, it's the same as being powerless. When you're all knowing, it is the same as not knowing anything. Because we misunderstand what all-knowing means. For instance, in the case of all-knowing, when you know that everything is going to happen, that is, when you know that every single possibility is as likely as any other possibility, and they're all there simultaneously forever, then you know that nothing's going to happen because everything is just as likely as anything else. So, in the case of being powerful, almighty, one must understand that the only reason that there exists such things as ethics, morality, choice, preference in this reality is because God does not does not pop up, from the sky and say, poof, there's no more evil, poof, there are no more, rapes and whatever. But it's not that God can't create a perfect reality or whatever. Sure, he could. But in that reality, there wouldn't really be choice or meaning or anything. Understand that if anytime there's something bad that happens, say a murder, and you get down on your knees, you pray and say, please God, make that disappear or reverse time. And being all powerful, it really means there's absolutely no limit to your power, which means you can turn back time, you can bring people back from the dead, you can erase the memory of the murderer and make sure that the murder never happened in the first place. You can erase the memory of the victim. You can erase the memory of the person that prayed for that murder to not have taken place, and so everything is as it was before. God can then also erase even the thought of murder from that murderer's brain. But in that kind of world where there is no real consequence for your actions, such things as ethics would be unnecessary and meaningless, because you can do whatever the hell you want, and if you're not happy with the outcome, you can just pray God and he'll reverse everything and bring everything back the way it was. So only in a world where when you do something, it carries consequences that you cannot change, then do you have the possibility for the existence of such things as ethics or of good and bad and all these things. Because the only reason why murder is bad is precisely because you cannot take it back. And the thought experiment for understanding this is quite easy. It's the same as playing a video game with absolutely all cheat codes turned on. God mode, no clipping, infinite weapons. How do you play that game? Do you play it exactly as it is meant to be played? Do you feel the things that you feel when you play it normally? Or do you play it in a blasé kind of way, like boom, boom, you're dead, blah, blah, blah. It loses all sense of meaning. And the only reason that it has still some meaning is because you have the experience of having played games with no cheat codes, so you can kind of infuse meaning artificially into the game, even though you're playing it in God mode. But imagine if you would have always played video games in God mode, always. Well, then nothing makes sense, because the enemies that are supposed to hurt you, they are supposed to trigger a certain type of behavior, for instance, and a certain type of experience in you, which is, for instance, hide behind, obstacles, and then, develop all kinds of skills to be able to kill the enemies. But imagine if you've played your whole life in God mode, you've never known anything else, then what you're seeing is just a bunch of colors moving, and they're enemies, quote unquote enemies, they're just a bunch of colors, and they're sending, like, let's say, fireballs your direction, which are just a bunch of colors that hit you, and it doesn't do anything to you. It bears no consequence. There's no impact. There's nothing. And so how do you play that game? You don't even know how to play it. You understand it? Even to give a meaning or a direction to what you want to do in that game is predicated on the fact that you have certain limitations. And you have experienced limitations before. Because otherwise, there's no point in defeating the big boss, because it's not even a challenge. So you would be lost in infinity, literally, meaning you would just see a string of colors, and going in one direction or another direction would be the same. There would be no preference in that choice. And so in order for this reality to exist, where there is such thing as meaning, as preference, as choice, God absolutely cannot intervene. The moment he intervenes, all of that is gone. All of the meaning is gone, all of the ethics is gone, all of the experience that we've built, all the limitations, everything, it's gone, it disappeared. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, God can intervene, but only via the conscious beings that are in that reality. And people that have experienced synchronicities know what I'm talking about, which is sometimes you do feel like the universe is conspiring for you having a certain experience, and everything clicks in place, like you meet the right people, or something happens. And I'll give you an anecdote. I'll tell an anecdote of something that happened to me many years ago that is kind of along those lines. So I was in the metro, walking towards my metro in a long corridor, and there were a bunch of young people, a little bit, let's say, wild, behind me, like a group of 3. And they started shouting and doing all kinds of stuff. So I, turned back to see what's going on. Then one of them is like, "What are you looking at? You want to fight? You want to fight?" Kind of like really, I don't know, seeking problems. And I just reacted by smiling, asking, "What's up? What are you doing? What is all this about?" And I never for an instant did I even think of the fact that I'm going to having a fight with this guy. And one of his friends is like, "Come on, let him be, look, he's just so nice, just, forget it." And so it's almost as if the universe, in that sense, manifested something or someone so that I was, in my experience, which is, no way I'm going to fight this guy. He was in his experience like, "Oh, I want to fight. I want to, provoke something, And then the guy in the middle, which was kind of arbitrating between us, and I just turned my back and just walked straight and didn't look back. And so nothing can really happen to you unless it already exists within you as a possibility. That is, because the possibility of me fighting this guy, it just wasn't something that was remotely, plausible or possible for me. It meant that the universe had to manifest some kind of event where we could all have this experience of me not fighting him, somebody wanting to fight me, and somebody intervening and stopping the other guy in his tracks. And so in other words, if things are really bad and you need God and you pray to God, the way that God would intervene is he could only intervene via the conscious beings that are present in your reality at that moment. And then you would experience that as synchronicity, which means if you're really like in a dark alley and somebody's about to kill you or something, if you really pray sincerely and the possibility of that event happening inside of you does not exist, then something's going to happen. The firearm is going to grip, the guy's going to run away, a policeman will just turn around the corner. But it's not that he's going to send an angel and he's going to pop up from the sky and he's going to like do miracles. That's not the way that it would happen. It would happen via the universe almost conspiring via the conscious beings that are there to help you in some way or another. And it's just that we have this, I don't know why, we have this preconception that for God, quote unquote, to intervene in this reality, it would need to be something like a bearded man from the sky that, you know, just waves a finger and then suddenly everything is solved. But it would break everything that we've built. And I'm saying like we've built, because these are self-imposed limitations for the purpose of experiencing limitations, which is something that from the point of view of a infinite absolute being is the most exquisite experience. And so on the one hand, we have our egoic self and our persona and our individual that is suffering. And on the other hand, we have what would be more like our soul, which is jubilating because it's saying, wow, outside of this body, no way I could have such a sophisticated and an interesting experience. And obviously what's nice is when you can kind of reconcile those two sides and that both are happy, which is not an easy thing to do by any standard. But with all of this, you understand that God, an absolutely powerful God, can absolutely exist in this reality, even though there is the existence of evil, and that doesn't make God evil at all. Because again, it's just about when you allow, you know, this freedom and choice and all that stuff, the moment you intervene, every single thing that you can build, like ethics, morality, and whatever, disappears instantly. So I hope you found this video interesting. Don't hesitate to leave a comment, like, share, subscribe, the usual, and talk to you in the next episode. Bye, guys.